I heard a slam against my office door. Loud, like someone threw their whole weight into it. By the time I opened it, no one was there. Just a journal on the ground, aged and scuffed up. It looked like it didn't want to see me either. I don't think I remember the last time I saw another person in this building. I don't think I remember the last day I had off. I just know my job is to log these stories they give me. I don't know why they're always like this. There was a notepad taped to the front and it said, "Don't go to Mayerton." So I'll read it. This is case file 16, The Missing Sister. Written by JamFranz. When my sister Shelby disappeared, even when they declared her dead, I knew she was still alive. I could feel it. And I was right. Sort of. And so here I am sitting in my car at 2:10 a.m. near a darkened bus stop that probably hasn't seen another visitor in decades, waiting for her. Despite being warned of the consequences, I'm riding to distract myself from the nearly overwhelming, increasingly strong prey instinct to run. The urge put as much distance as possible between myself and what I can only describe as the receding nothingness beyond the tree line. 28 days ago, Shelby was driving through Mayerton, a tiny town I never heard of until I got the call from the police. Until it became the last place my sister was seen before seemingly falling off the face of the earth. I'm still not sure why Shelby was there in the first place. It was far out of the way from Billings, where she'd been headed. But I suppose that'll be one more thing I'll never get the answer to. Not from her, at least. They declared her dead. When the Mayerton police called me, they told me they found her car. That bright red 15 Mini Cooper she loved so much, wrapped around the tree on the side of the road. If she'd been in the car when they found it, maybe I'd been more inclined to agree with them. The car was mostly totaled, but what did remain of the interior was immaculate. There was no blood. Her purse and suitcase were there, keys still in the ignition. It was still locked from the inside. Everything was still in the car. Everything except for my sister. But the local authorities told me she was dead, and despite my pleas for them to look for her, they straight up refused. No need, they said. So I knew it was on me to find her. I was running late on my first visit to Mayerton. A delayed flight and a mix-up with my rental car when I finally landed meant I wasn't approaching the town until nearly 12 a.m. or so. To top off an already bad situation, I was lost. My GPS told me to take exit 19C, but I couldn't find it. I'd taken several U-turns and looped back a few times, and each time grew more and more frustrated as I'd see 19A, 19B, and then exit 20. It's not like 19C was recently closed either. The guardrails were perfect, seamless, and beyond the highway was nothing but trees and craggy rock. Now it was more like there wasn't an exit 19C. There never had been. And to further exacerbate my building anxiety, my GPS refused to provide me with an alternate route. As far as Google Maps was concerned, the only way to Mayerton was to take an exit that didn't exist. After 3 more loops around the highway, I finally gave up and stopped at a crappy motel conveniently located off exit 19B. I asked the guy at the desk if he could suggest a way to get to town, since at that point I had no clue how I was supposed to find Mayerton. He looked tired, and not merely 1 a.m. tired. No, he looked exhausted by life, tired, and didn't even bother glancing up from his book he was reading when he dismissively told me, It'll be back in the morning. The exit? I asked, sarcasm a thin veneer as I tried masking my racked nerves and that I was on the verge of tears. Or the town? He just shrugged noncommittally. I lost it in that moment. Head in hands, I broke down sobbing on the dingy check-in desk of that seedy motel. He was kind enough to ask if I was okay, and instantly found myself telling him everything. Why I was headed there, how unhelpful the authorities were, how I knew the only way I'd find her is if I went searching for her myself. After a brief silence, he quietly confided that he'd also lost someone. His fiancée had gone to Mayerton several years ago, and she'd also disappeared. Did they ever find her? I asked automatically, even though I was fairly sure I already knew the answer based on decades worth of misery etched into his face. So it took me by surprise when he nodded. He stared off into space for the longest time before he whispered, "I wish they didn't." He introduced himself as Gary. He told me that my sister Shelby was gone, that nothing good could possibly come from me going to look for her. And when he couldn't talk me into turning around and going back home, he offered me a room for the night. As he handed me the key, he reluctantly told me that 19C would be back at 2 a.m., but would be gone by 11 p.m. the next night. I knew he was messing with me, that no road would magically appear. I figured I'd try to get some sleep and then drive to the next town over to see if someone else could help me. So you can imagine my utter shock the next morning when, sure enough, just like Gary had assured me, where before there had been a solid metal guardrail, there was an exit. I'd found 19C. The worn gravel and the peeling paint on the off-road seemed to indicate a well-traveled road too. So I followed the winding one-lane road through the trees, and I was confused yet relieved when I found my way to Mayerton. That relief was short-lived. The police were somehow even more unhelpful in person, insisting Shelby had gone and I should go home, move on. It didn't matter that she'd only been missing a couple of days. It didn't matter that there wasn't a body. I wasted hours at the station, changing nothing, convincing no one. The case was closed, they told me. As far as they were concerned, my sister was dead. Now, based on what I've learned, I almost wish she was. That would have been more merciful, a kindness even. As I continued my own search for her, the longer I lingered, the more I realized that something was very, very wrong with the town of Mayerton. Every single house that wasn't already demolished sat abandoned, the structures slowly being reclaimed by overgrown lawns and encroaching woods. The sidewalks are empty of people, and I only saw 2 other cars on the road in all the hours I was there. The few businesses that remained open had only a handful of customers inside, and they were clearly not happy to see me there. Every single person I asked told me the same thing. It was eerie how their responses were so similar, almost word for word as if rehearsed, that they'd never seen my sister before, that there was nothing for me in their town and I needed to leave. And then, with what seemed like genuine sadness, they were sorry for my loss. Eventually 10:50 p.m. rolled around, and I still found nothing. The stores all closed at 10 p.m. Even those traditionally open for 24 hours everywhere were closed 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. I'd watched the town shut down. I watched it empty of people. So frustrated, I pulled into one of the many empty parking lots, and I stared at the shadowy expanse of trees where the car had been found. The air was stale and heavy with an unnerving silence, thick enough to choke on. It was in that moment, as I sat in the red glow of the shut-down pumps of the only open for 19 hours gas station I'd ever seen in my life, that I first picked up on the hint of wrongness in the air. I could suddenly feel that there was something out there beyond my line of sight. Something waiting just past the trees. Something terrible. I realized that Gary and the handful of people I'd encountered were right. I needed to leave. I had that epiphany a little too late, because what began to happen next was a cherry on top of my shit-covered sundae of a day. As I took a final look into the trees, as if they could give me a sign, an answer, a darkness unlike anything else I'd ever witnessed began to seep through them, swallowing them. It choked out the light from the moon. It was like a curtain of nothingness, a presence only detectable by the absence of everything it touched. It carried with it a smell of burning meat mingled with rotting fruit that suddenly flooded through my open windows. I found myself frozen as it approached. As it swallowed the houses down the street, I could feel a strong sense of emptiness, one that sucked the air out of my lungs, threatening to crush me at the same time. It felt right. An extended invitation towards the embrace of nothingness, towards something ancient and insatiable. The encroaching darkness swallowed the crimson glow from the gas station pumps. It was the only realization that the blackness had begun to nullify the lights from my headlights. That snapped me out of it. I three-point turned my way the hell out of there, peeling out and pushing 65 down the winding road out of town. In that moment, I was thankful that the town was empty of police too. Approaching on the ramp 1059. I didn't understand what was happening at first, why the road I was driving along looked faded. That's when I saw something metal shimmering faintly in the distance. It didn't look solid, as if it wasn't entirely there, so it took me a moment to realize what it was. A guardrail. I tried to swerve and slam on the brakes before I hit it, but I was going almost about 90 at that point, and the laws of physics and I had differing opinions on what the correct stopping distance would be. I braced for an ending that I wondered if my body would even feel, brain even register, but none came. Instead of the sound of metal on metal, my ears were met with an angry honking of the person I'd cut off as I messily swerved into I-15. I was back on the highway, the light of Gary's seedy little motel visible from across the way. I took one last glance at the place where exit 19C had once been, and once again ceased to be. I didn't know what else to do, so I went back to the motel, breathless, describing every moment of my ordeal to Gary. He didn't even look remotely fazed by my story, instead opting to stare into space. I realized then that the police were right. She really was gone. She'll be back. Will. Part of her will. He finally told me, perhaps in response to the look of hopelessness that must have been written on my face. 2:30 a.m. 28 days after she first disappeared, at the bus stop off Main Street. Are you sure? That's where they always come back. He smiled sadly before engrossing himself back into his book. And that was weeks ago. As of this morning, it's been 28 days since Shelby first disappeared. I touched down in Billings and made the 6-hour drive to the outskirts of Meriton, waiting patiently for the exit to appear. I debated stopping by to see Gary, but decided against it. He'd asked me not to tell him if I chose to go back. He said he didn't want whatever happened to me to be on his conscience. But it's 2:29 a.m. right now, and here I am anyway, sitting at the ancient bus stop in the empty city of Meriton, a city that was only recently returned to existence, staring into the last of the receding darkness. I can see Shelby in the distance now, pale in the faint moonlight, barefoot, immaculate for someone missing for a month and emerging from the woods. I found her. And even from here, I can feel something radiating from her. An emptiness, a yearning hollowness, a hunger for something far more precious than mere flesh and bone. I should be running to embrace her. I should be ecstatic. And instead I'm frozen, overtaken by another emotion entirely, one I've never felt before around my sister. fear. No, not just fear. An overwhelming, suffocating terror. It's not just that now familiar emptiness that radiates from her the same way it did from the beckoning nothingness when it nearly claimed me last month. It's not even the way her skin seems too light on her frame, or that she's taller than I remember. No, it's that awful predatory smile on my sister's face, one I've never seen in all our 26 years together. She moves as gracefully as she did in life, but in her eyes I see only death. I realize as I watch the palpable nothingness incarnate that's wrapped in my sister's flesh that I'm not sure what exactly she wants, what it is that she hungers for. In a way, I wish I hadn't come back. I should have believed those that told me she was gone, because she is. She is utterly devoid of everything that had made her my sister. As I fight the urge to run to the car, to leave Merton before whatever it is that wears my sister's skin like a too tight suit can reach me, I can't help but replay my final conversation with Gary in my head. So, she'll be back in exactly 28 days from when she went missing? He nodded, no longer able to meet my eyes. But I need to warn you, if you thought it was bad when she disappeared. He paused to stare past me and into the dark expanse of trees off the highway. It'll be 1,000 times worse when she comes back. I told him I knew I was doing the right thing, that trying to save my sister could never be a mistake. Oh God, she's closer now. I can't tell if she seeks to fill the void by dragging me back with her, or if the hunger is more primal, more literal. All I know is that the Shelby that disappeared, that I lost, is not the same Shelby that I see before me now. And I'm frozen to the spot now, as if I'm trapped by her gaze. I'm gonna share this while I can. Maybe I made a mistake after all.